Hi everybody, this is Sue Altmeyer, and this is the second video in our Advanced Legal Research tax module. So we are going to talk about secondary sources. First, we should remember what secondary sources are. Secondary sources describe and explain the law, and they cite two primary sources. Secondary sources are persuasive at best. You should probably not cite to them if you are submitting a brief in a tax court or the district court or what have you. But they are a good place to start. They can save you a lot of time and energy, and they offer very clear explanations of what's often very confusing concepts. So one I wanted to point out in Westlaw, let's see, if you go to practice areas and tax, if you click over here on the right hand side to secondary sources, you can see a whole ton of different secondary sources. You might want to limit to just texts and treatises, for example, because those are going to be some good big secondary sources. One that I would recommend, you could either find it alphabetically on this list, or if I just simply type in Federal Tax Coordinator. The Federal Tax Coordinator, it's a very large and well-respected set on federal tax. It is organized by topic, not by Internal Revenue Code section, so it might be a little bit easier for someone who's not familiar with the code. The next source that I wanted to point out is maybe something you have not used before. It's called CCH IntelliConnect. So from our law databases page, if I scroll down to IntelliConnect, and some attorneys, instead of buying subscriptions to Lexis or Westlaw, they use these alternative sources such as CCH, such as Bloomberg Law. They use that instead of Lexis or Westlaw for their tax practice. We see that CCH, it covers many different topics besides tax, such as advertising law and banking and a whole bunch of other stuff. But here are the main tax things are up front here. And I would like to point out the U.S. Master Tax Guide. So the U.S. Master Tax Guide has an information useful for preparing tax returns for that year. A good quick and dirty resource if you're preparing tax returns, U.S. Master Tax Guide. Another resource that's very popular on CCH IntelliConnect is called the Standard Federal Tax Reporter. This is a huge set that covers all the different Internal Revenue Code sections. It does go by Internal Revenue Code sections. If I click on a particular Internal Revenue Code section, what the Standard Federal Tax Reporter is going to give me is not only the text of that Internal Revenue Code section, but it's going to give me links to history. It's going to give me links to regulations, CCH explanations, which are, expertly written explanations and very clear, easy to understand, case annotations and annotations to administrative decisions, current developments, forms, etc. So it gives you a bunch of different resources related to that particular code section. The next item I wanted to show you is Bloomberg Law, and you may or may not have used Bloomberg Law before, but Bloomberg Law has a very good practice center for tax. You could see that there's tax reform information right up front about what's the currently pending legislation in Congress. There's quick links to statutes and regulations, quick links to various agency documents so you can search those. The secondary sources are over here under expert analysis. Some of my favorite ones, and really everybody's favorite ones that does any research in tax, is the BNA tax management portfolios. And you have different portfolios for U.S. income, estates, gifts, and trusts, international, as well as accounting for income taxes. So the portfolios are super easy to understand. If you just open one up, you could drill down, you could search. If you know the portfolio number, say I want portfolio 515, divorce and separation, I could just go to that. And we see that there's detailed analysis on many topics as well as working papers. So you see if I click on a particular section, and this is even a very short section, it gives me the relevant regulations, the relevant code sections. There's a case, chief counsel advice. Here's a revenue ruling it cites right here. So it's pulling everything together for you. Another thing I wanted to point out on Bloomberg Law is that the tax section is organized by federal, state, international, specialties, daily tax report. That's a super good current awareness service. And I should point out if you go to a particular code section on Bloomberg Law, so here's my code section 166 about bad debts. Over on the side here, it's going to give me the related Treasury regulations, all the related regulations, as well as citing cases, other related content, committee reports. Let's look at other related content a minute. So it gives you everything here: related portfolios, secondary sources, additional analysis, statutes, regulations, agency documents, news that relates to that particular code section. So if you haven't signed up for Bloomberg Law yet, just go to bloomberglaw.com. You should see a screen like this, and you could click on register. Registers for a student account. Just use your UAkron email address, and you can get access to Bloomberg Law. Okay, last but definitely not least is Lexis. So on Lexis, if you click on practice area or industry and go to tax law, you're going to get a whole bunch of stuff. And here's some secondary material. I could just type in, if I want to see tax notes today, I could just type in tax notes today. Here's tax analyst tax notes today. So I could click on that and I could search it. I could possibly search it by date. I could set up an alert and get all sorts of good tax news. Oh, one last thing I wanted to let you know about is from the Law Library's homepage, Akron Law Library's homepage, if you click on library guides, we don't have a research guide for tax, but if you go to major legal treatises and you could pick whatever subject you want, and if I pick taxation, this will give me links directly into some of the major secondary sources.